miles, just a quarter mile to my apartment, and a police officer stopped me.
And what were your thoughts?
I saw the red blue light. It was getting dark, so you can see the reflection, and he didn't really turn on the siren. It was just the light. So he walked up to me, and he asked for my driver's license. And then he said, "Who told you how to handle police officers when you see them? Because I see you're new in the United States." Before he came to me, my hands was on the steering wheel.
And you were probably shaking.
I wasn't shaking. A lot of good things over there, bad things over there. Good things over here, bad things over here too.
I think I recall you sharing the story. There was a problem with how you dealt with your car's engine, right? I can't even imagine being a new immigrant here to this country, and that's the first thing that happens to you is like your engine goes out.
We don't really do the mild thing in Nigeria like that,
You're just like, it's
that kind of thing. I think they should be doing it now. Guess what? At some point, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go back.
This guy's late all the time. Doesn't matter where he's at. Yeah, there's no doubt. Like if you're in that kind of mode that you're trying to get there.
In fact, I opened up the door, walked into the church. It was all white people. I'm like, what in the world? What's going on?
We should be more diverse in our views. We just aren't. All of us, going back several generations or perhaps more, were immigrants. Once again, they are coming from a different background. As former slaves, their family members were, and they were raised in the Baptist or Methodist. The nephews, and I look over, and there's this really black guy. Because the conversation we had was on faith, and she was a very faithful woman. We're rolling?
Yeah,
are we rolling right now?
We're on air.
We're on air.
So mind what you say.
So, we've already had a few conversations about a variety of topics, Christmas and specifically spirituality.
Oh yeah.
But my wife was saying, like, you guys need to share how you guys met. And kind of like the beginning months and years of our relationship, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was cool the entire time for you in regards to your experiences when you first came.
Yeah.
So that was 2019? Right?
It was, yeah.
It was like the spring of 2019, probably around this time, right?
Yeah, it was just me and my family. My family was already there when I met you. But I know I came in first before my family joined me in the United States. Yeah, but we met after my family joined, and that was in a church.
Well, let's go first to you though. So, when you first came here, you came by yourself, right?
Oh yeah.
And you flew into where?
That was my first stop was New York, right?
New York.
Yeah, because I had to go to Florida first, get some things straightened out, my social security, driver's license, and open up a bank account and stuff like that. Like starting a new life, pretty much. Getting an ID card, pretty much,
And you did that in Florida?
I did all that in Florida, Orlando, Florida.
Okay. So your first driver's license said Florida?
Pretty much, yep.
Okay, interesting. How long did you...
Well, I did my driving test in Florida, everything.
So how long were you in Florida?
It was I think it was about, I want to say 2 months. Not up to 2 months, almost 2 months. Yeah. So it was pretty much, the people I was going to work for. They were trying to I wouldn't call it adaptation, get me into the system. Because I'm like... newborn baby in a system no one knows nothing. So the social security, everything was done in Florida. They helped me through it. Before I'll call it deployed to Monroe.
Deployed. But didn't you, on the way from Florida, you stopped in Arkansas, didn't you?
So Arkansas, I went to visit my brother.
Your brother lives in Arkansas.
Yeah, I know when I was done, when I did everything I did in Orlando, I had to go to Monroe, but I'm like, I want to visit my brother in Arkansas. So I went to Arkansas, and then from Arkansas to, and then I drove.
And you drove, and I remember you sharing.
I drove.
You drove.
I like to see myself as being brave. How many hours is it? I think it was
from Florida to Michigan, it can take 24 hours to drive.
Yeah, so I set out very early in the morning. I bought a car. Mm-hmm. We bought an SUV. My brother helped me buy an SUV through Facebook Marketplace. It was a used SUV. It was a nice car, a Lexus 330, something like that. But it was cheap. Mm-hmm. They had a little bit of issues. I didn't mind because I didn't have enough money to buy something, better than that. So, yeah, we bought it off this guy and bought some other things that I would need here in Monroe. Mm-hmm. And then I drove around 3 a.m. I set out to Michigan. I drove from Arkansas to Michigan.
And what time did you arrive in Michigan? At 3
It was in the evening. It was like around 7-ish.
And this was March again, right?
Yeah.
This is the beginning of March.
Yeah, it was around 7, 8-ish. Mm-hmm. And then, because I already got an apartment, right, in Monroe. And, everything, I put everything in GPS. I was driving. I had no plate number. It wasn't registered, right? Because I just got the car. And no police stopped me.
A police stopped you?
No police stopped me until I got to Monroe.
Until you got to Monroe.
I was like a quarter mile from my apartment that I've not seen yet. I've never seen this apartment yet. I drove all that miles, just a quarter mile to my apartment, and a police officer stopped me.
And what were your thoughts? The police pulled you over in Monroe.
So, yeah, I saw the red, blue light. It was getting dark, so you can see the reflection, and, he didn't really turn on the siren. It was just the light. Yeah. And honestly, no one told me what to do. Mm-hmm. But I've been seeing this in the movies, right? You gotta watch.
Maybe the movies are helpful, right?
Yeah, it was helpful. So, I went off the road. And it was just by Telegraph Road, Stewart Road. Telegraph.
Okay. Yeah. All right, yeah, I know what you're talking
about. So I went off the road and then took the police a while. And that wait was like the whole day for me because I was like, what am I getting myself into? Mm-hmm. But then I have a driver's license. So he walked up to me and he asked for my driver's license. I think he first of all told me, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm like, I don't know. He said my tail light wasn't coming on. It was getting. Yeah. I didn't even know it had an issue. It was a used car.
Facebook Marketplace, right?
Facebook Marketplace. You get what you get. So yeah, he told me that, and then he took my driver's license and went to the car. Did whatever he did in the search computer system, and then came back to me and told me why he stopped me and asked me where I came from and all that. I gave him a little history of everything. And then he said, who told you how to handle police officers when you see them? Because I see you're new in the United States. Right?
And you handled yourself well, he said.
Yeah. So, yeah, he asked me where I'm from. I'm from Nigeria and all that. So he was like, who told you? I'm like, from the movies. So he smiled. He was a young dude. He's nice. And then he asked me, he told me I did very well. Mm-hmm. I should keep doing this way. And if I keep doing it this way,
you're gonna be fine.
I'm not gonna be in trouble. Yeah. And honestly, I was like, before he came to me, my hands was on the steering wheel.
And you were probably shaking.
I wasn't shaking for some reason. I didn't know.
You knew you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. I knew I had my driver's license. I knew I just got the car. I wouldn't have been able to, do everything, register the car and everything. It was like a few days, right? I kind of know that. So he said I should keep doing it that way. And if I keep doing it that way, I'm not going to have any issues in the United States. I'm like, thank you, sir. Okay. And then he asked me a question. He said, how do police officers handle people? Like, how do they
handle these types of things in Nigeria?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, man, he wants to talk. Which was cool, right? Yeah. And honestly... It is different.
I can imagine. Maybe that's a topic for another day, right?
Honestly, we have to talk about
policing.
That. Not just policing.
But government stuff.
Not only government stuff. A lot of good things over there and bad things over there. Good things over here and bad things over here too. Yeah, which is, I told him and he laughed. It's different. Like, police mount roadblock. Let's not spill the beans. Let's leave it for another day.
I think it's a good topic.
Yeah. Let's leave it for another day. But yeah, after that, he let me go, and then drove to my apartment, and that's it. Life begins. Yeah.
So there was, I think I recall you sharing this story. There was a problem with how you dealt with your car's engine, right? That new car you got. You remember that?
Oh man, that breaks my heart, bro. Man, I love that car. It's not a very beautiful car, but I just like the car.
Mm-hmm. How much did you pay for it? Do you remember?
I can't remember, but it was way cheap. It was way cheap. Like I bought it for a good. It was gonna be reliable, but I think I made a wrong decision.
Because you did what with the?
Yeah, so I told you. So what happened was, it was winter. Pretty much, it's cold, very cold. Then normally in Nigeria, it's usually warm in Nigeria. So what we do, we put water on the radiator, right? So I opened up the bonnet, which I don't even think I needed to. I don't know why I did it. So I poured water in the radiator. Like, it wasn't supposed to be water. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be, what's it called? The coolant, right?
Coolant, yeah. Typically.
Which is pretty much, built for the weather. But because I didn't know, I put in regular water.
And ruined the engine.
Because
it froze.
Yeah, I was driving in a very cold day and froze the engine.
I can't even imagine being a new immigrant here to this country, and that's the first thing that happens to you is like your engine goes out. So
it was crazy.
Yeah, and you were working. You immediately when you came to Monroe, right? You started that job as a nurse.
I had to go to work, and it was hard. So I called my manager and told my manager she's an angel. Yeah. So this woman took it upon herself to come pick me up every morning to work. Even if she's not working. Wow. She comes pick me up and drop me off. Yeah. Nicole Goodman.
Shout out.
Nicole Goodman. She's
a good woman. Not a good man, but a good woman.
She is an angel. She's not a woman. She's an angel. Without wings, though. But yeah.
So were you ever forced to walk to work then in between before? Did you walk to work at all?
No, I didn't.
Oh, so you immediately had.
I immediately had that opportunity. She showed up and she helped out. Yeah, it was.
I think didn't you share before with me that you were walking to church for a little bit there though?
Oh yeah,
to St. Mary's.
Yeah, the first church that was. I think it was the next day. No, it wasn't the next day. Well, one of those days that I didn't have a car. Right. I wanted to go to church and never been there. I checked the GPS. It was like 3 churches. I chose the closest one, which is St. Mary's, which is good. And we don't really do the mile thing in Nigeria like that.
You're just like, it's like,
that kind of thing. I think they should be doing it now because GPS is like everywhere now. But before then it wasn't like very common. So I didn't really calculate how far it was gonna be.
It's like 3.5 miles, isn't it?
Oh man, I set out. I started walking to church, and it was cold. It was cold. Guess what? At some point, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go back. But then I'm like, in between, like you're going back. It's the same distance as going to
there,
church.
so I might as well make it there.
You know what? I'm just gonna.
So did you actually make it in time for mass?
I did. I was a little bit late,
like usual. This guy's late all the time. All the time. Doesn't matter where he's at. He's fashionable and he's late.
Oh my God. Should have used that word, right? Yeah. So I went to church. I was late, but then at least I showed up. I think I'm better than people who didn't go to church that day, at least. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like if you're in that kind of mode that you're trying to get there.
In fact, I feel like I was going to receive more blessings.
Yeah, I think you did that.
Who drove to church, because I actually stressed to that church.
Mm-hmm. So that was the only time you ever walked to church.
And dude, I felt like. So I opened up the door, walked into the church. It was all white people. white people. I'm like, what in the world? What's going
Where
on?
am I at? What kind of church is this? And it's a Cali church.
And I was the only colored guy there. Like, I was like, what's going on?
Was this on a Sunday or was it a weekday?
It was on a Sunday.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there was no colored person. It was just white people.
And obviously that's a conversation for another day. When we talk about the church
Yeah.
and the differences there.
Yeah.
'Cause we should be more diverse in our pews.
Oh,
We just aren't. But anyhow.
But why is it like that? Like, why do you have like more white people in the Catholic Church than?
And so obviously you're an immigrant. All of us, going back several generations or perhaps more, were immigrants. And it depends on whether the country you immigrated from was Catholic or not.
Oh, okay.
Right? So we typically do not get a lot of Africans immigrating to this area.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
But historically, we've had Irish people immigrate to this area.
Okay.
French people immigrate to this area.
Okay.
Italian people immigrate to this area. That's why you see German people.
Okay.
That's why you see the predominance of
So
whites.
it would be like if you move to where you have more blacks, like Texas, you would see
Houston,
more
yeah.
blacks,
Or like if you go to Detroit,
Yeah,
a lot of those parishes are Hispanic,
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So it just depends on
where you find yourself.
But I agree with you, and we're kind of even a tangent.
But honestly, like, look at this. Behind the church, like St. John's, which is like, it's almost like an area where you have a lot of blacks, you know, a lot of colored people, but they still don't come to that church.
But once again, they are coming from a different background. A lot of those individuals come from, or now we're getting into history, they came or Mississippi.
Oh.
As former slaves, their family members were, and they were raised in the Baptist or Methodist or kind of evangelical tradition. So their family background is that way.
Oh, it makes sense to me. It makes more sense to me because I was like, why is it like that? Is it meant for those people? You know, but that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but anyhow, going beyond, I guess we can go right into the church stuff. Like, that's how we met.
Yeah.
Was in church.
Yeah, so I think it was a Reverend Father who was having like a...
Well, prior to this, I do this thing with my nieces and nephews during the summer typically called, what do I call it? Soul Train.
Soul Train.
I call it Soul Train, and basically what I'll do is I'll take my sister's very large van and pick up all my nieces and nephews, which there's a lot of them, and we'll go to church on a weekday at a noon mass. Go to mass together, get lunch, go to the playground, that kind of thing. So I'm doing this, and I'm walking in with all my nieces and nephews, and I look over, and there's this really black guy. I was like, oh, that's unique in this church. And he's got these children, he's got his wife there, it looked like his wife. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I need to introduce myself. And I don't know if I remember if I introduced myself briefly at that.
I don't think we talked in the church. But I was like looking at you, and you were not like looking, but I was like thinking about you. Like, it's kind of not very common to see a young guy your age, which is like 5 years younger than your age now. That was then,
correct.
Right? That
I had less praise back then.
On Wednesday, on Monday, in the church at 12 noon. Right? A lot of people wouldn't do that. And then you were there with a lot of kids with you, and it was like impressive. I thought that they were kids, but then there were a lot of them. I'm like, there's no way he would have had this number of kids. It was just impressive for me. I was just thinking about you.
What's going on with this guy?
What's really going on with this guy? But at the end of the day, we got to, we got closer and we talked.
Yeah. So then there was another event. So my buddy Father Kevin Roland just had come to this church as a new associate pastor. So there was a gathering for him to kind of celebrate that. And I was like, I'm just gonna reach out to these guys. I'm gonna sit with them at this event. And I think I still have that paper on my desk. I asked you to spell out all your names.
Of it was difficult. We have like pretty much first name, middle name, and then last name, right? So for some reasons, I'm like, I struggle to learn how to speak English. I'm gonna make you guys suffer to call the names. That's the only way I can get to you.
Yeah.
So, not that I didn't really mean it that way, but I'm like, oh, I think it's cool. So I made sure their first name was like the local name, which is kind of difficult to pronounce.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I probably still
but I stuck with it. Yeah, I kept it that way.
Yeah.
You know, my name, I give you the local name. My kids, the local name. You gotta say it.
Yeah. I think it's good.
So it was difficult for Joe at the day to say those names. So he was writing it down. I was laughing.
And I remember, like, because I don't think Bridget was with me at that time.
No, it was just you.
It was just me. And I was like, Bridget, like, we need to meet these people are awesome. I can just tell they're awesome. And she was like, "Are you serious, Joe?" I was like, "Yeah, there's something about these people. Like, we need to go out to eat with them or go to the park with them." And I think Bridget first met Onyi and the boys all together. There was like a music festival.
Okay.
Remember that in Monroe? It was like a jazz festival or something.
I was there too.
Yeah.
We met.
We met there and we got together.
Yeah, you introduced her for the first time. It wasn't as cold because.
No, it was in the summer. I think it was like around Labor Day or even August. So yeah, we were able to go, kind of like the kids were playing on the playground. But I remember thinking, because the conversation we had was on faith, and she was a very faithful woman.
Yeah.
That was one of the major impressions we walked away with from that night, and we knew that. Yeah. Our relationship from there was going to continue to blossom and bloom like we are today. Like we're 5 years in the future now.
Look how we now.
We're brothers, as you can tell. Let's wrap up this conversation. We'll continue another time.
For sure.
It's always good to get together with you, brother.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah. You guys subscribe and like this channel, okay? You about to get blown away.
Yes.
Honestly, this is just
it'll be a lot of fun.
Of the iceberg.
Yeah.